Hello, BookTube. Today I'm doing an original book tag. Um, I'm calling it Genre Weapons. Take some of my favorite literary genres and then some of the weapons used in those genres. Um, so let's start out. The first genre is thriller spy stories. And for that, I have Ian Fleming's James Bond series. And that weapon would be the 9mm pistol, the Walther PPK. I don't have any of his books in the house, surprisingly, so I can't show you any of those. The second genre is historical fiction, and for this I chose Michael Chabon's Gentleman of the Road. It's right here. This was his tale of adventure. It was Ballantine Books, New York, and that came out in 2007. And I'll just read you a little bit about the weapon. It starts off chapter 2 in this. It's easily as the sailor handling a blasphemy, the African reached behind him for the Viking axe, whose name, cut in runes along its ashwood haft, translated roughly as defiler of your mother. But three little words preserved the cordial relations between the head and neck of the intruder. A wiry old party armed with a short sword, Persian by the look of him, with a knob of scar tissue where his right eye had been, and a curious sneer. So, yeah, a Viking axe with a rather colorful name. The next genre is the westerns, as in cowboys and Indians and Louis L'Amour and Zane Grey. For that, I actually picked the weapon because the weapon is ubiquitous. It's all over the place, and so I didn't want to pick any one book, but I did want to pick a book that has the weapon itself described, and that's The Guns of the Old West by Charles Edward Chappell, and this one was privately printed for members of the Firearms Classics Library. And that weapon is, let's see if I can find it here. It has a nice rubber marker, so it should be quite easy to find. Is the model 1872 Colt revolver, known as the Cavalry, the Peacemaker, or the artillery models. And that's what it looked like. So that's a gun from the Old West. And then I went to fantasy. So for fantasy, there's no shortage of great weapons in fantasy. Swords, battle axes, daggers, and all sorts of things. And many come to mind. But I chose the U-bow and the arrow. The black arrow of Bard the Bowman in the battle at the Dale and against Smaug in The Hobbit by J.R. Tolkien. And the archers are standing there. They're like the last line, the last hope. The dragon's causing massive devastation and its power and fearsomeness. And then a thrush lands in this desperate moment. A little wood thrush, a little bird lands on Bard's shoulder. And when it speaks, Bard, who's a descendant of the race of Dale, is shocked to find that he can understand what it's saying, and it gives him targeting directions, you might say. And there's this scene where, in this scene, the bowman says, "Arrow, black arrow, I have saved you to the last. You have never failed me, and always I have recovered you. I had you from my father, and he from of old. If ever you came from the forges of the true king under the mountain, go now and speed well." So, Bard the Bowman. And then for science fiction, again, there's no shortage of great weapons in the genre. But growing up, I was a big-time Star Trek fan. And so for me, the hand phaser that could be set to stun or kill. And there was a great distinction, and it was part of the drama of the show. And so the hand phaser. And you see a cover here from one of the Star Trek novels. All three, Spock, McCoy, and Kirk, all with hand phasers. I don't know if they're set to stun or kill, because I can't remember the story. Anyway. And then the other genre that I love is nautical fiction. And again, I picked something to illustrate a weapon from nautical fiction. The Great Age of Sail is the part of that I'm particularly interested in. And it's used a lot in many of the books. So I didn't pick a particular book, but I did pick an illustration to show you. And it was a horrible weapon. It did a couple things, and it's called shot. And it would be fired at an enemy ship and the crew of the enemy ship. A lot of times it was designed to dismast, take out the sails, but in the process it would also take out rather brutally the crews that were on deck. And this is shot, and it comes in many kinds. So you can see here it would swing around, or the bars would spin. You had grape shot that come apart like a shotgun. So there's a lot of that stuff in nautical fiction, and it can be pretty gruesome. But and the next one was horror. So we're going to go from gruesome to gruesome, right? For this, I picked. I'm not a huge horror fan. But when I was a teenager in the 70s, I lived on a street, end of a street, where I could look up 4 or 5 houses from my house and see the house where Stephen King lived. And we'd read a lot of, it was in the early days of his career, it was the 1970s. And I remember reading Salem's Lot, and it scared me to death. So, if you remember Mark in Salem's Lot, and the vampire, and all that. So there's a scene where Mark is trapped in a room in the house, and luckily there's a cot, a metal cot, and he unscrews a steel cot leg. And he stands behind the door because someone's coming to get him, and he holds it up. And when the door opens, Mark attacks, and he, rightfully so, and he attacks Straker, and he's beating his head with things. Pretty gross. Blood's flying everywhere. And then, but Straker, even when he should be dead, his hands grab, you know, that horror movie stuff. And following that scene, of course, Mark walks down. He's going to go to the cellar. He's terrified because that's where the vampires are. And Susan's down there. And then he just yells. And I'll leave the rest of that to you if you're into that sort of thing. And then the final genre I picked with weapons it's mystery. And the weapon used in this case is poison. And the mystery I chose is Ellis Peters' Monk's Hood, a medieval mystery, suspense story. Brother Cadfael story. This was William and Morrow Company, 1981, New York. There's where the Abbey is, Shrewsbury. And Cadfael is like the monk detective guy. If you see, they had on TV, it was, I think it was BBC, Sir Gerard Jacobi played Cadfael. So, there's a someone who has joint aches. So one of the monks telling Cadfael about it. And Cadfael says, well, I got this stuff that works, but you gotta be real careful with it. So here's the ground root of monk's hood, chiefly in mustard oil and oil from flaxseed. It's powerful poisonous if swallowed, and a very small draught of this could kill. So keep it safe and remember to cleanse your hands well. but it works wonders for creaking old joints. He'll notice a tingling warmth when it's rubbed well in, and then the pain is dulled, and he'll be quite easy. There, is that all you need? I'll come over myself presently and do the anointing, if you wish. I know where to find the aches, and it needs to be worked in deep. Yeah. If the murder mystery is called monkshood, you know that the poison got used. You know, the treatment got used as a poison. So that's the book tag. I'm going to tag Steve Donahue, the Paperback Junkie, Ernest Lee Eston, and Mel's Bookland Adventures. And thank you, BookTube.